Hi everyone, and welcome back to Writing Guy. To follow up with the previous video, here are a few more things I've learned after spending more than 7 years with the fountain pen hobby. I hope this is helpful, and let me know what else I should add to this topic. Once again, all the links are in the description, and if you are looking to buy your next fountain pen, you know where to look. And now let's get right into it. The first thing that is usually neglected, that is paper and ink, get you the largest returns on your investment. Most fountain pen beginners tend to invest quite heavily on their first few pens while neglecting the other aspects of the hobby. Consumables such as inks and paper, or accessories such as cases and tools. After the first 2 or 3 pen purchases, the largest return on investment I found to be with inks and paper, and specifically good quality paper. Your typical Clairefontaine and Rhodia pads are good daily carry, as you can just plow through many of them without ever thinking of the cost, but once in a while, a splurge with a high-quality Midori or Tomoe River paper notebooks can bring new life into your fountain pen hobby. Different inks react differently to various types of paper, and depending on the quality of the paper, the hidden qualities of the ink can be brought out as well. With inks, a more lubricated ink can be the savior of the writing experience of finding nibs, while a drier ink can help making a broad nib easier to use on a daily basis. Trying out different types of inks can really improve how your fountain pen writes. If you have a fine nib, using ink that flows smoothly can make the writing feels easier and smoother. On the other hand, if you are using a broad nib, inks that doesn't flow too fast can make it easier to write neatly every day. By trying different inks, you can find the ones that works best for you and makes writing with your fountain pen more enjoyable. Well, this is really my personal opinion, but there are only 2 price points for fountain pens. Either $35 or below, or $150 and above. Most fountain pens available on the market is intended for the younger audience who are still in school with writing needs, and because of that, the majority of products are priced at $35 and below. There is still improvements into the quality of fountain pens in this mid-range. However, the changes are less noticeable, so you can start saving for those really solid pens at the upper price range. For the typical fountain pen users that just started out, they have the tendency to want to try out as many pens as possible. Of course, there is differences between models in the starter price range, yet the fit and finish might not be significantly improved, and there is little to none resale value to these pens. If we think about this from the financial perspective, we can safely say that it is better to combine the cost of the little ones into one high-quality writing instrument that can last way longer and can provide you with more enjoyment out of it. Moreover, with a higher price point, we can start to see pens that comes with a long line of history and a well-put design behind it. Various budget gold nibs from Japan, such as the Pilot Custom 74 or the Platinum 3776 and many others, are the results of many years of history and refinement from previous models, and you can really get many years of writing out of any of these high-end pens. And speaking of prices, there is diminishing returns after the $750 point. As the other way around can also be applied to your purchases. The majority of improvements in terms of writing experience and constructions of pens are made up to the $200 to $300 range, and we can start to see things capping off at $750. This is a really broad generalization, so please bear with me. And if your opinions differs, feel free to comment down below. Now, back to what I was saying, a fully spec'd out fountain pen would typically look like this. A gold nib, either a piston filler or a vacuum filler, a nice packaged box, and a brand name to go with it. And you can actually start getting that set up with a budget well below that amount. Above $750, other than brand names and the extra bells and whistles, you can notice how little changes or drastic upgrades we can get with a pen purchase. Limited quantity or special releases kind of are marketing techniques to create FOMO, and to be a well-versed customer is something that we can all practice for ourselves. I'm not telling you how to spend your money, and if a seasonal release pen tickles your fancy, then feel free to go ahead and add it to your collection. But as for the average pen shopper, you can rest assured that you are not missing out if you're not getting that $1,000 fancy pen in the store window. Now, speaking of higher-end gold nibs pens, the gold content of your nib doesn't really matter. Now, the hallmarks of gold content in your nib only shows the amount of gold inside of your nib. And that's pretty much it. The gold content does not really show how flexible or soft your nib can be. And as a matter of fact, 18K nibs or even 21K nibs from Sailors are some of the stiffest nib available on high-end pens. There are other factors contributing to how flexible your nibs can be, such as the overall profile and the length of the nib slit, as well as the other metals that makes up the nib alloy. Modern fountain pen nibs are intended for daily writing, and only a small number of them are intended for flexible calligraphy-esque creative work. There's a large gap between the results you can get from a steel nib with dip pens while you apply pressure to the nib to create wider lines. You are essentially applying pressure to the metal, and eventually this would cause micro cracks to the nibs. And this is the reason why some of the dip pen nibs start to corrode and would break after a few weeks of use. The gold content inside of your nib would act as an unresponsive element to make sure your nib does not react to inks and does not corrode while in contact with inks for a long period of time. So if you want a nib that can bend to your will, then look up some of the writing samples available on the internet with the nib models you're looking for, and I think you can make an educated guess on how flexible it can be with your own style of writing. Speaking of handwriting, your handwriting will adjust accordingly to the nib size, and basically nib size doesn't matter. During your fountain pen journey, there would be times when you're looking at the secondary market for a really specific pen, and when it pops up, the nib would just be a tad larger or smaller than what you're used to writing with. Now, there are the obvious choices of not getting that pen and to continue to wait, but what if it would take you a few more months or even years to see the exact same pen with the nib size you're looking for? And after a few times that has happened to me, I've come to terms with actually getting accustomed to various nib sizes and adjust my handwriting accordingly. If I let the perfectionist in me keep me away from getting the perfect pen, I would lose my mind over the stress of the tiniest detail of pretty much any pens, because at the end of the day, the perfect pen with the perfect nib size does not really exist. After a while, I think anyone could get accustomed to any nib size by adjusting things around it, such as the ink choices and paper, to accommodate the pen. It is easier to change your paper to something more pleasant and ink-friendly than to change the tipping size of your pen. And writing a bit larger with broader nibs sometimes can be more fun than to stick with your hairline extra fines. It's fun to change things up once in a while, and that specific pen with your desired nib, it would show up eventually, and you can always sell the current one after it serves its time. And in the previous video, I've mentioned the hardship of those who would like to venture into the world of vintages due to the sole reason of the lack of spare parts. These beautiful relics of the old world would not be able to exist up to this point if there weren't any pen restorers with the right parts for them. In a perfect world, it would be lovely if a pen manufacturer could support a pen model in 3 to 4 years down the line, and fountain pen users could purchase those extra little bits of parts along their new pen. However, such a world does not exist, and it's quite a tricky thing to do to find parts for a not so popular model when something goes wrong, and especially with the nib. I've come to terms with only experiencing super high-end pens in short period of time for content, and of course these do not come with a wide variety of spare parts available. So if you're into that, then be prepared to shell out quite a bit of money when something goes wrong to your pen. And the last thing, this is something that can only be experienced if you are into any kind of hobby that requires you to buy and sell lots of things. And owning pens can be fun, but the fun only lasts until you want the next pen. There could be other things I've missed, but after spending quite a long time with this hobby, I think that having the chance to experience different models and various writing instruments, I think the crucial yet very well neglected fact in the current summaristic state of the world is that it's okay. It's okay to not own everything. We don't have to go out of our way to spend our hard-earned money to hoard things that we don't fully utilize. And it is such a wasteful thing to just buy things out of the desire just to have it in the collection. I've gotten there before, and to the point of not remembering where did I get this pen. And at that moment, I realized I was having a hoarding problem. There will always be the next grail pen, so why bother pursue an endless chase? To repeatedly buy things without an end goal in mind is quite a scary state to be in. It's like you're addicted to the high of chasing after the next pen. And knowing where your goal is and stop is sometimes a real blessing, but that's just me. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, and as always, see you guys in the next one.